Good morning, guys. Mr. Smith here. We are going to be talking about the Great Depression today. We're going to focus on Herbert Hoover. We have just two slides today that I want us to look at, Herbert Hoover, and then the second slide is life in the Great Depression. All right. Now, within these PowerPoints, there are a lot of pictures. You know, I'm very oriented towards art and using art as a visual description. So even though it might seem like a lot, there's really just a lot of pictures that kind of go along and to help support some of the points that we're trying to make here today. All right, so again, we're talking about Herbert Hoover. Herbert Hoover, first of all, was elected in 1928. Calvin Coolidge, after he takes over for Harding, will be elected in 1924 with, you know, the "Keeping Cool with Coolidge" slogan. But after one term, he's going to step down and decide not to run for re-election. All right. So Herbert Hoover, who was the Food Administrative Director, and then he was the Secretary of Commerce under Harding in 1920, he comes to power. All right. And initially, understand that, like many other things, you know, Hoover thought that it was you know, that the Depression was like other recessions. When the Depression hits about a year after he's elected, he's not going to think anything different. Like, oh, we're in a recession like we have been, right? And so his initial response is volunteerism, right? He wants people to volunteer, and he urged businesses not to cut wages, and he really tried to find ways for states and individuals to take care of themselves, all right? And just put this here. So he's going to urge unions not to strike like they have been doing in, you know, the early 20s after World War I, and he's going to really ask for private charities to increase their assistance, you know, like Red Cross and Salvation Army and places like that. Okay. Gradually, as the Depression goes on in his term, he's going to give more recognition that more was needed to get the country out of its current situation. Okay. Now, foreign policy has a lot to do with the causes of the Depression or even the extension of the Depression. First, the Hawley-Smoot tariff bill is going to create the highest tariff in history. All right, Europeans are going to retaliate, like we talked about in class, with high tariffs of their own. So then that's going to help produce this lack of a foreign market, which is really going to hurt you know, our trade with other countries, and then it's going to hurt with the increase in revenue. All right. The other thing is he's going to create a debt moratorium where he's going to set a limit on how much debt America has to other countries. Domestically, he's going to help create the Federal Farm Board, which is kind of already in place, but he's going to, again, give it more powers, and it's going to hold the surplus. Okay. The program really is too modest to do much good. All right. The other thing he creates is the Reconstruction Finance Corporation, which is very similar to like the stimulus package today. He gives loans to businesses such as railroads, banks, financial institutions to help, I guess you could say, prop it up, to hold these businesses up. Therefore, they are not going to lose revenue. All right, and really the whole idea, it's like a trickle-down theory. All right, understand that the RFC is the first of its kind, and obviously it's not the last because it's been copied over and over again. All right, now one of the things that occur during Hoover's presidency is the World War I vets were told after World War I that they would receive their bonuses or their veterans pay at a certain time, so many years after the war. And what occurs is what we call the bonus army. There are a number of veterans who want to be paid immediately, and Congress is going to vote on a bill to speed up the veterans' pay. It's actually going to pass, but Herbert Hoover is going to veto it, and he's going to be adamant not to pay the veterans more than what they're currently being paid. This is going to lead to, again, the Bonus Army March. They're going to camp out on the mall in D.C. It's going to lead to a bloody riot where people such as Patton and Eisenhower are going to be in charge of vacating these veterans from World War I. People who fought underneath them, they're going to be responsible for vacating them off the property, and some of it does turn bloody. All right. When it comes to the election of 1932, he really doesn't have much hope. He's renominated pretty much because of the RFC and the hope that he can turn things around. All right, but a new Democrat's going to come to power, obviously, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. All right, and his whole thing is he's going to pledge a new deal for American people. All right, and the whole thing that he wants to do is he wants to aid the unemployed. They want to repeal prohibition, cut government spending, and that includes balancing the budget. And he wants to attack the 3 R's, which we'll talk about on Wednesday with the New Deal, which is relief, recovery, and reform. Okay, FDR is going to win in a landslide. It's not too difficult to defeat a guy who's blamed for the greatest depression in American history. All right, so here you see some of the bonus march. Here they are on Capitol Hill. Camping out in front of the Capitol, obviously. And again, like I said, it turns a little bloody and violent. Here, the one guy has looks like an iron pipe. All right. The movie Cinderella Man does a nice job of showing the bonus march, even though in the movie it's a little out of date with the sequence of events. But they do show in the movie the veterans in Hooverville and how it turns bloody, and there's a riot in Hooverville and they burn down. Here's Roosevelt, probably the ugliest first lady ever, Eleanor, who in fact is his cousin. All right, you see he wins pretty easily in this election. And then some of the impacts of the Great Depression. We'll talk about bread lines, soup kitchens. All right, you see these daily places for people to go and eat. This is in New York. You see how long the line is. All right, unemployed youth cause a lot of trouble and crime. Very famous painting here. Turns his back on help. Here's a Hooverville, I believe in Detroit. Even in the countryside, you can see the problems. All right, the impact on children. All right. And you can see how there's really not much help. And then Roosevelt is going to do a good job, I think, of coming in and whether it's right or wrong in the way he applies a New Deal, he comes along and he tries to provide some type of assistance. All right. Hoover's Poor Farm Tobacco Fund, I like that. Let's see. Rotten apples, you see that? 5 cents. All right, and then we'll stop here.